Isaiah Collier's having a monster impact on his teammates. Is it real? I thought so. Now I'm not so sure. It's next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 bum.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. On today's show, we'll look a little bit at the last 30 games. We'll do it a little bit more in depth, but two items, maybe three items that I'm really keeping an eye on for the last 30 games of the year for the Utah Jazz to see what's going on. Last night, the Jazz got physically manhandled. We'll see what happened there, talk about it in the Luka Doncic debut. The Jazz were the innocent bystanders to a butt whooping, unfortunately. And we're starting with Isaiah Collier. Isaiah Collier continues to have a rookie year that is opening eyes. The 29th of the pick is the surprise, and the Jazz really might have found something, I think. And I thought these numbers were truly incredible when I did them before the Clippers game the other night. And now, it might have been too small a sample size. So let's look at what I have for you. On the year this year, when Isaiah Collier is on the floor, or let me take that back. Since January 5th, when Isaiah Collier was moved into the starting lineup and started to really have an impact on this team, the Jazz offense, effective field goal percentage shooting. Okay, let's put that in perspective. Effective field goal percentage is the number that is used to weighs three-point shooting. It's a better way to look at the field goal percentage. The league average is 54.4. The Jazz are currently on the season the 21st ranked shooting team in the league, a little bit below average. When Isaiah Collier is on the floor since January 5th, okay, the Jazz effective field goal percentage is right on league average at 54.9. Or actually a little bit above league average at 54.9. 54.9 would put the Jazz at about the 14th ranked shooting team in the league. Okay, pretty great, pretty good. So we're noticeably better than what we are for the season when Collier's on the floor shooting. And this is what you would say, on one level, you could say this is usually against starters, things of that nature. We don't get a ton of shots off because we turn it over, some things like that. Okay. When Isaiah Collier is off the floor in that same time period, the Jazz shooting falls off a cliff. Now, there's probably some reasons for this, but the Jazz shoot, in those circumstances, the Jazz shoot 48.5%. 48.5 would lead the Jazz as by far the worst shooting team in the NBA. So since Isaiah Collier's been moved into the starting lineup, the Jazz offensive numbers, they shoot it at 54.9 when he's on the floor and 48.5 when he's off the floor. Now, what's interesting, just the QSQ, which gives you your shot quality, is only 2 percentage points better. So some of this, initially, I have to say, let's pause. There's a bunch of let's pauses in here before we get too excited. Just analyzing the numbers and not explaining why. The first pause has to be, okay, the 6 percentage point difference between what we are since in January 5th, since Collier on the starting line, with Collier on the floor compared to off the floor, is probably a little bit of a small sample size. And the reason I say that is the QSQ, which is the shot quality, is only 2 percentage points difference. So this might have to do a little bit that Collier's playing with our starters, who are generally better players. We're pretty thin right now, and you're getting some not as good players on the floor in those next matchup lineups without Isaiah Collier. Okay? So that's a possibility. On the other end, I believe last night was his 7th game with 10 assists, the most ever by a Jazz rookie. On the other end, he plays the game in a tempo that creates more opportunity and seems to get people going and moving it. On the other end, he shoots when he's on the floor, which is bad. Right? He's not a good shooter. So the fact that he's shooting when he's on the floor should actually hurt his own numbers. And since Isaiah's moved in the starting lineup, it's not as though his shooting has been any better than it was before. It was really struggled early in the year, but he made an 8-3 last night. He's made one kind of every other game for a while. But it's not as though he's become a good shooter. So in some ways, he actually should hurt his own numbers. So generally, I'm taking that this is like, is this small sample size theater or something? I'm actually taking something. And the individuals along the way that are playing considerably better, this was going into last night with Collier, are interesting. Johnny Juzang shoots 50 percentage points better since January 5th with Collier on the floor. It's a little much, but it's early opportunity threes. Jordan Clarkson's effective field goal percentage, 31% better with Collier on the floor. Yeah, they run together. Keyonte, 11 percentage points better with Isaiah Collier on the floor than off the floor. That's because he's not playing with the ball. Lauri Markkanen, 22 percentage points better with Isaiah Collier on the floor than off the floor since January 5th. That one jumps out at me because Lauri's not having a very good year, but is it because he's just not getting very good looks? And Svi Mykhailiuk is better when he's on the floor also. The guys that are not, John Collins is 10 percentage points less. Sense about Cody Williams or 10 percentage points less good when he's on the floor. Collin was +7. And Walker's about even because Walker's shooting variance is pretty low. So, I think there's something here that Johnny Juzang and Jordan, 2 players who thrive in the open court early threes, and that Lauri Markkanen, who someone's got to put pressure on the defense, create something to get him things. It's better when he's on the floor. So that to me is something. These are pretty exciting numbers if you're looking at Isaiah Collier's development, what the Jazz might have. And obviously, there are still issues. He's a 25% three-point shooter since he's moved to the starting lineup. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's something too, but in a bad way. What I think here's where I get a little hesitant, is the last 2 games against the Clippers and against the Lakers, physical, good, high-level defensive teams, it flipped. Now, the Laker game last night was such a blowout that I don't know if it really matters. But in the last 2 games, these numbers have completely flipped. And it makes me worry a little bit. And now, is this something or nothing? Makes me side a little bit on the side of nothing, is that when Isaiah Collier's been off the floor since in the last 2 games. Oh, actually, take it back. Did I actually do this backwards? Oh, this is going to make me feel so much better. Because I did feel in the last 2 games when Isaiah Collier's off the floor, I had it backwards. This makes me feel much better. I'm glad I just double checked. We're at 51% shooting. And with Isaiah Collier on the floor, this could actually be something. Sorry, I just did this late last night when I got home at like 4:00 in the morning and may have done it wrong. Which is, funny is every now and then when I do these things with you here, I actually do always kind of try to double check them while we're talking, because I want to make sure that, exactly what just happened there. It didn't happen. So let's make sure this is right. It's the earliest date being February 3rd so the Jazz off the floor, it's the same thing. We're not nearly the problem. In the last 2 games against the Clippers and the Lakers, with Collier on the floor, we're a 53.8, and with him off the floor, we're a 50.9. So it's 3 percentage points, not 6. But that leads me into a little bit more of it's a something. Originally, I thought those were flipped. And then I went, oh gosh, against the most physical, best defensive teams, some of this impact dissolves. That turns out to not be true. Sorry, shouldn't do stats at 4:00 in the morning. So The Jazz are getting monster impact from Isaiah Collier in the way he's been able to play and impact games. And that's really a great thing. I cannot believe I could have been that wrong. I wasn't that wrong. In the last 2 games, it has swung, I think, a good deal. The last 2 games, I wasn't that wrong. The last 2 games, it is 51% with him on the floor. And with him off the floor, the last 4 games, it's been a little closer. But with him off the floor in the last 2 games, it's been 58.9. I was not that wrong. There was just no way. 58.9. So in the last 2 games, this is the concern. In the last 2 games, again, a lot of blowout, weird time. 58.9 when he's off the floor. Kind of unnatural to 56, but only dropping back down to 51% when he's on the floor. 3 percentage points less. Okay. Too early to totally tell. There's something. Bunch of guys, plays faster, open opportunity, and the Lauri and Keyonte numbers are the ones to really watch you. That Isaiah Collier seems to make the life better for Keyonte George and Lauri Markkanen. Okay. So that's some good stuff. The Jazz got manhandled last night. And it tells me one big, stark thing for the Utah Jazz. And we'll talk about it next on Locked On Jazz. The Tuesday edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by my friends over at Murdoch Hyundai. Located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs have been in Utah for over 80 years. And the Hyundai car gives you, if you look at it, more bells, more whistles, more safety features, more cool stuff for the dollar than anyone out there. Go check it out right now. The Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6 are the hot electric cars as the electric market continues to thrive. And the Santa Fe's, the Palisades, the Kona, the Tucson are the SUV lineup. I'm driving the brand new Santa Fe. It's pretty sweet looking. We had the Palisade earlier. It's fabulous. I yearn for it still a little bit. Gosh, they're both so good. I don't know. If I was doing one or the other, I think I would do the Palisade. Pretty great, though, on both levels. Go check them out at Murdoch Hyundai in Logan and in Linden and in Salt Lake at 4646 South State Street. If you're going to stop by, email me first at dlock09@gmail.com so I can give you the VIP experience you deserve as a Locked On every day. Are you running a small business, which means you're wearing lots of hats? Then your personal phone becomes your business phone. And before you know it, you're juggling customer calls all day and night. I did this for like 8 years with Locked On. As your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number. That's where Open Phone comes in. It's the number one who could have told me about this a long time ago? It's the number one business phone designed to help you keep your work and personal life separate. For just $15 a month, cost of 3 of these, you get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. Open Phone works through an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It's also AI-powered to call transcripts and summaries, so you'll have a rundown of your calls, action items, in the second you hang up. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, Open Phone is offering 20% off their first 6 months. My goodness, what I would have done for this. Go to openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA for $20 off, 20% off your first 6 months. Openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have the existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps and on YouTube. Thank you. We have the new daily newsletter. Katie Heindel writes a great article each and every day. Yesterday, she wrote about the injuries. Yesterday was about the bodies. That's right, about bodies and how we talk about Luka's body and everybody else. It's pretty fun. Mike Schrader comes on every Thursday, and Josh Lloyd with National. It's the number one stop possible newsletter for you. Go please sign up at LockedOnDaily.com. and get your Locked On Jazz email to you. Today, you'll get Empty the Noggin exclusive reaction to last night's game. That was disappointing to me. And it is catching my eye that we have been run out of the gym twice recently, and both times with all of our guys playing, which is weird. On January 30th, we went full bore against Minnesota, no injury management, rest, anything, and got waxed. And then last night we went full bore, and I know the guys were excited last night, and that the guys were really kind of coming into that game hoping like to ruin the party. They saw this as a great opportunity to kind of take the center stage, be on ESPN, and go have a night where they could kind of prove themselves, and probably had more eyes on them last night than they will in any game all year combined for the rest of the year, and didn't do it. And these two things are a stark reminder. We're built to develop talent this year. We're not built to win games. But I do think in the midst of the season, you kind of fall for your guys and you get excited and you start to think, well, we're not that far. And I've had a lot of that from people. And we're pretty far. Like, that's part of this process. We're pretty far away. And that I think it was a good kind of stark reality that here we have two teams that are playing really two of the hottest teams in the league in Minnesota and the Lakers, and they both just waxed us. And, frankly, when we played Memphis, we lost by 22. We weren't at full strength. I mean, we've played four good teams. We lost to Memphis by 22. We lost to Minnesota by 25. We lost to the Clippers by 20 and the Lakers by 20, 30. So a stark reminder a little bit on how far we still have to go, which is not surprising or earth-shattering or unknown, but a reminder. We got physically dominated, though. That's what was interesting to me. The Lakers looked so big with Luka, LeBron, Rui Hashimura, Jackson Hayes, and Austin Reeves on the floor. They looked so huge. And the Jazz got stagnant offensively, didn't move the ball. I mean, Clarkson would have the ball in the wing, hold it, and then the Lakers' defensive positioning would get set. And there did not look to be any room at all for the Jazz to be able to get through it. And then the Jazz, to me, looked like they were just getting physically manhandled, which was, it's what the Lakers do, but I don't know if that's surprising, but it was just noticeable. Let's go with noticeable. The disappointing part was that you just kind of felt like the Jazz might come and bring it, and then defensively, they just were a mess. The half-court offense by the Lakers in the first quarter was a 150, and the overall offense in the first half was a 150. I mean, that's too much. You've got to be able to have more resistance than that, frankly. The Lakers were 14 of 22. They had 5 threes, and of their 8 misses, they had 3 offensive rebounds in the first quarter. It was just like, wow. In the second quarter, it was kind of more of the same. They were 13 of 23. They had 3 threes and had 3 offensive rebounds on their 10 misses. I mean, it was just, again, and only 2 turnovers, just a big wow. They really just manhandled everything about the Jazz. And it's a reminder there's levels, right? There's levels to this. You don't just turn it on for a day and get there. And the wins against the Golden State Warriors were super fun. And they're great because you need those wins to keep going. But they also, I think you realize that these aren't, it's just, you got it. Like, I don't want to belabor it or have the second worst record in the NBA. We're worrying about developing 7 players. It just does. And maybe I'm the one who needed the correction that New Orleans has lost 9 in a row. So I think they're actually now the second worst record, but, and so they're going to, it's the purpose of the season is to develop these 7 young guys. And that's that's the reminder for the next 30 games. That's certainly what we're looking at. Last night was just kind of eye-opening to me on just how much the Lakers just were older, physically stronger, bigger, even against John Collins looked like he was being dwarfed. And Lauri I thought Lauri was the one guy who had a few nice plays in there, which were physical plays where he had to kind of work his way back to what needed to get done. But otherwise, that was just a pure domination. That game was, and again, I came to it hoping a little bit that the Jazz would be able to, make a nice little run at it, and they're not going to be able to. And then we have a pretty tough schedule the rest of the way. There could be some more nights like this in the West. The West is separating ever so slightly right now. It does feel to me like the top 6 teams, I have Minnesota in that 6, not the Clippers, are just a little better than everyone else. So Thunder, Memphis, Denver, Lakers, Houston, and Minnesota. And then the Clippers, Dallas, Sacramento, Golden State, and Phoenix will be trying to fight each other off with one of those teams not making the playoffs. And then I don't think Portland's coming that strong, but they sure have been good. And then they got waxed last night by Denver as Jokic had another crazy night. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. There's going to be quite a fight going on there. The top 5 have certainly separated themselves and are playing for playoff positioning. They're all separated by 2 through 5 is only separated by 2.5 games. So they'll have their own little fight on this. And then we'll see how long. I don't think Dallas, with their injuries and Gafford getting hurt last night and the mess around them, can maintain. And Sacramento's just not good right now. And Golden State, is in the Jimmy Butler 2-game honeymoon. I'm not buying. So I do think there's a real separation there that is taking place. So we'll see as we venture down the West. But last night was just physically manhandled, dominated, and just a reminder to me. All right, last 30 games. What are we looking for? What are we watching for? What matters? I'm going to give you 3 things that I think really matter in the final 30 games. 2 of which I think are realistic. 1 of which, if I'm being perfectly honest, I think is probably not very realistic. It's next on Locked on Jazz. Thank you very much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We asked you some interesting questions on YouTube the other day, so let me get you the results on that. Which Jazz young players play recently has excited you the most? Was the one poll question was which young players shown the most improvement recently? 77% voted Isaiah Collier, 18% said Walker Kessler. I would have voted Walker Kessler over Isaiah Collier. Kyle Filipowski, 2%, Keyonte George, 3%. Some comments after the Suns game. One comment was, okay, I'm excited for the development. We've won 3 out of 4. That's too many. Somebody else said, we're so happy about Isaiah Collier. We forget about Cody Williams. I really like the aggression of Collier. He knows to pick his moments. He's trying really hard on both ends. If he could learn to set a hard pick in the ribs like Stockton, the value would be outstanding. It's something that I think may help him. I don't think Collier has a worry about softness, by the way. And we have the playing time the veterans are getting is hurting the development of our young players. I would say we did play the 5 young guys together against the Clippers, and I'm not sure you can do that for an extended period of time. I'm sure we will do that. 2 comments from last night. I honestly wonder if Will Hardy can or will coach defense. He seems offensively gifted. I know the personnel isn't conductive to a great defense, but it doesn't seem like a thing with Will Hardy. I fear even with this team as good, the Jazz will be a 19th ranked defense, Dame Lillard to Portland. So that's one of my 3 things that I would kind of love to see here in the final stages that I think's unrealistic. I'd like us to be better defensively. Against Devin Booker, we just kind of never put up the resistance, and he got the 30-plus shots off. We didn't get him to the help the way we're supposed to. And then last night, we just got kind of physically manhandled. I don't know how in the next 30 games that improvement happens. And I don't actually know that that's a realistic ask. And I don't know that that's a fair ask. But if there were some inklings that the Jazz defense could get better, that would be superb. I'll be more specific on one area, and I do think they can do this in the final 30 games. The Jazz right now are really on the wrong side of the turnover battle in a pretty extreme manner. So we're last in the NBA in forcing turnovers at only 11.6% of turnovers a game are there. And then we're first in the league in committing turnovers. So as we move forward as a franchise, that actually just can't continue. You can't lose the turnover battle by that much every night. It's just too much to ask. Again, I don't know that you can fix that in the next 30 games, But I do think it'd be worth looking into whether or not there's something, and I guess I'm really talking about the defensive end. This is 2 years in a row where we're at 11.6%. We're considerably below kind of what the standard deviation should be off the 14.6%. You really, most of the teams in the NBA on turnover percentage are actually within 2.5 percentage points of each other. All but 6 teams are within like this little tiny block. Oklahoma City, Orlando, and Philly force a bunch more turnovers. Milwaukee, Utah, Chicago, and don't force turnovers. Otherwise, everyone's kind of, it's a 3 percentage point block. Everyone's, and that, if you think about that, over 100 possessions, that's kind of like 1 turnover, 2 turnovers difference over a course of a night or two. But we're on the wrong side of this by 6 percentage points on either side. So every night, we're kind of, before the night starts, if it's on average, we're getting 6 shots fewer than the opponents because of our turnover differential. Makes it super hard. So I don't, and last year we did, I think we were there too as well. And so it's obviously somewhat of our personnel. But, and maybe this is a tribute to the Jazz, to Will and the Jazz coaching, but when I watch the NBA, if you play defense, there's an answer to everything you can do. Like you switch and get on the top side, they back cut. You switch and get on the bottom, then they set a pick on you. And if you're switching and you're going under, then they hit the pocket 3. There's an answer to everything defensively, offensively, because the players are so skilled in this league. It's why the league's incredible right now. And so when there's an answer to everything, to me, defense, to some extent, is just becoming get physical, blow people off their spots, ruin their spacing, change what lines they're taking, disrupt their movement, just physically beat the crap out of you. It's what the Lakers did to us last night. And if you look at the best defensive teams in the league right now, it does feel as though, other than Minnesota was last year's best defensive team in the league. And they had Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Davis in on you with Rudy patrolling the middle. And Rudy's the unique bird here. But if you think about the best defensive teams in the league, and Oklahoma City's way better, they're 4 points better than everyone else. They're just in a different strategy. They're just in your body. The Clippers are just in your body. Orlando is just in your body. Houston's just in your body the whole time. I don't know if I think Boston's that same way, but Derek White and Drew Holiday probably are. Memphis is. Like, that's what they're doing. Then Minnesota and Cleveland, I would say, are probably more the type where they're protecting the paint. They're taking away certain shots. Golden State's there too. But the top 5 or 6 defensive teams in the league are just physically beating you up. The top defensive teams in the league are also, of the top 6 defensive teams and 7 defensive teams in the league, they rank 1st, 7th, 2nd, 9th, 22nd. That's Boston. 5th and 8th in forcing turnovers. So 6 of the top 7 defensive teams in the league are in the top 9 in forcing turnovers. 8 of the top 9 defensive teams are in the top 12. It does feel to me at this stage where the league is right now, if you just sit back and play, unless you've got Rudy, or maybe if you have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, but if you just sit back and play, and frankly, Minnesota's 5th biggest forcing turnover team, so that tells me that Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, and those guys, and Nikhil are in you. If you're not, I don't think you can play good defense without that anymore. I just think, I used to be a guy who didn't worry about turnovers, but the offense is so good that if you look at the teams that don't turn it over on offense, they're all the best defensive teams. And if you look at the teams that force the turnovers on defense now, they're all the best defensive teams. So that would be one of the things, if in the final 30 days, if we can see a swap on that. And the last one, and he's been through enough, I don't mean to put a spotlight on him, but when the year started, I said, I want to see if Keyonte could put the ball in the basket. And I know his defense has been the focus of a lot of stuff, and it's not been very good. And he's working on it, and he's trying. And so you have a different area of focus. I'm still going back to where I started the year. And then I gave Keyonte a pass after 15 games because he had that weird shooting start and said, we're going to see. So we just finished another kind of 10-game stretch since he started coming off the bench. And he's shooting 40% from the floor and 27% from 3. The ball needs to go in the basket in the final 30 games. It just has to. Like, it just at some point, we're 100 plus games into your NBA career and the ball hasn't gone to the basket. That gets to be a problem. So, I do want to see that in the last 30 games. So my 3 things, I'd like to see some improvement defensively. I think that's unrealistic. I'd like to see some improvement on the turnover game and just maybe we're not so much on the short end. And 2, I'd like to see Keyonte put the ball in the basket for the final 30. That is Locked On Jazz. We'll do points gained tomorrow. We'll look at some other fun stuff as well on Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast in the Utah Jazz. Follow me on socials at DLock09, all of them, Instagram, Snap, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, all of them, DLock09. If you've not already subscribed to the program, please do and hit the bell button on YouTube. And if you're love you to get the daily newsletter and get Empty the Noggin sent to your inbox after every game, plus all the other breakdowns and the great national writing we have for you, go to lockedondaily.com and sign up. We now send you on YouTube to the first ever national 24/7 YouTube NBA YouTube channel, Locked on NBA, and on audio, check out Locked on NBA Game Night, every game, every night, hosted by Nick Angstead today.